Hi everybody, thanks for being here. I'm Josh Kimberg, I'm the managing partner of Clutter Magazine, and this is the Future of Designer Toys panel, where we're going to pull apart the latest trends and what's going on and see if we can come to some sort of answer. And maybe at the end we'll sign something.
Like declaration?
Yeah, like a, you know, this is what's happening, and then we've decided, and then we're all going to go out and make it so. So, I'll start on the end. We have the illustrious Mr. Frank Kozik. He needs no introduction.
Hello.
Next to him we have the really, really hot Galen McCamey, the creator. I've been just ever since we met. The creative director of Kid Robot, which is kind of news, right? Congratulations. We have Carlos. This is your Carlos, right?
Yeah,
Carlos East of the Beast Brothers, not the other one. Carlos, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And Ricky Wilson of Velocitron. And Nick Curtis, professional blogger, designer toys too.
Anytime you see the name Trust Pigs, that's me.
Trust Pig, yes, Trust Pigs.
You should.
So, I've been thinking about this for months, kind of before we ever decided to do a panel. Where we're going is something that we debate all the time at Clutter Magazine. We run the Designer Toy Awards. Oh, and that's the other thing I wanted to do before I started was just to give a shout out to our sponsors from the Designer Toy Awards. And don't forget to check us out on livestream.com/Designer Toy Awards tomorrow night. They're going to be amazing, 8 to 11. Log on. Thank you. And thank you, Sidekick Labs. Where are we going? What are we doing? And are we actually progressing toys to a new place? Are we successfully navigating our way towards high art? Are we making more toys? Are more and more people making toys so that there are almost no fans left and there are just artists in the industry? And what are the materials that are being used, and are they being used successfully to create high quality products that actually grow the industry and grow the market and make more and more people love what we're all so deeply invested in? These are the things that we talk about all the time, and it's a balancing act. And I was joking about us coming up with an answer. There's no real answer, and I think there's different answers from different people. But Frank, why don't we start with you? You were just talking as we were coming in here. We're saying the industry is about 15 years old, and people have to follow the trends. What do you think is happening next? What do you have your sights set on? To put you on the spot.
Well, can you guys hear me? So I've been dealing with this industry, the toy thing, since '99 or so. It's been strong in the States starting about 2004. And everyone's always asking us, like, where's it going? What's the next thing? Like, people, personally, I think it is what it is. It's a niche market. Some artists started in it and got big and mainstream, others disappeared. It's like anything else. It's like the music business or something. It's just a market that's based on people doing creative stuff. And the thing is, everyone's always asking, like, oh, what's the next thing? Or they're going, it's failed. Like, people are just obsessed with categorizing and making rules and, like, defining it. And I don't think that's necessary at all, because the beauty of it is that it shouldn't be a defined thing. Some people are making, like, super obsessive collector items. Other people are trying to market characters that are crossed over with other media to have a brand. Everyone's trying to do something a little bit different. Some people are just in a solipsistic spiral where they're just making collectible toys for other collectible toy makers. So the thing is that, like, I don't think really we need to worry about where it's going, unless you're in the business or you want to be in the business. And it's like anything else. You have to think about math, and you have to do your market research, and you have to plan ahead, and you have to understand the basics of business. So, I'll happy to talk at length about my experience now for many, many years in this business and similar ones. But I think that this whole, like, trying to put a label on it and trying to put a predictor on it, and trying to put, like, is it valid on it. I think that's a waste of time.
Cool, let's all go get lunch. Thanks for coming.
Shortest panel ever.
Galen, on the flip side of it, your experience, Frank, is totally valid, and you have your own brand, and it's strong, and so you, coming from the perspective of you're going to navigate from day to day, and it almost doesn't matter where it's going, because you're going to be there. I respect, and a lot of people wish they were in your position, but I think...
Yeah, but you have to understand that I have to replicate the new guy position every single day. Like, everything like the guy doing his first toy thinks about, I think about every single day too.
Right.
So I think the deal is to, like, not so much worry about what if someone's new at making toys, if this is the person you're addressing, like, here's a guy, he wants to make his first toy, like, is it worth him doing it or something? Is that what you're asking? Should he do it? Of course he should do it. If he fails, he fails. If not, not. But the basic concepts apply. Like, have your numbers in order, be able to survive a disaster or exploitive success, and, you know, like, look at the market and think about what you like and what the market might like, but, you know, you should be willing to take a chance too.
What do you think, Galen? Do you agree, and try and give us your perspective and maybe Kid Robot's perspective?
Yeah,
speak for the organization.
I definitely, I agree with a lot of Frank's points. It's true. I mean, it's an interesting marketplace. I come from a very corporate toy background, like, you know, Fisher Price, Mattel, Hasbro, and then into designer toy, which is I love much more than the corporate thing. For us, I mean, it's expansive. You know, we've kind of been able to break Kid Robot into categories and moving forward into the future, like further kind of define the categories so that we're able to put the right efforts and right time into each of the categories. So, like a Dunny series versus, you know, Street Fighter, different, you know.
Right, but as someone, let's say, starting in the industry for the first time.
Okay.
Frank's perspective is so valid, and it's like, it's kind of like the best coaching somebody would say to you, like, don't worry about whatever everybody else is doing, do your own thing, follow the trends, keep your nose to the ground, and like make it happen, and you make it happen again and again every day, and while you're at it, check your numbers. But is the point to be producing low runs? Should people be wanting to make production figures? Where is the value in what people are making?
Yeah, I mean,
and where is it going to go for kids who are starting today?
I would say it's pretty much people are able to build a fan base for themselves now.
Right.
You know, very easily through Instagram, through Facebook, through social media, and then they kind of develop a platform to sell their stuff if people like it enough. And it's encouraging to see because you get a lot more exposure and you see new artists emerging a lot, and there's resins. And you don't have to go to China, you know, or Japan if you don't have the money to manufacture limited runs like that you can do at home, cast a beautiful resin, you know, and make art pieces.
Do you think that's a good thing?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I collect it. I think it's a good thing. In terms of like a Kid Robot, do I think that's a good thing?
Well, for the industry, is it a good thing and maybe we'll turn the question over to somebody else if it's not right for Kid Robot to answer the question particularly, but is it a good thing for every kid to be able to go and make a toy? Does that help the industry, or does that cannibalize the industry?
I mean, I think at a certain point, people have the right to go and make anything, and I like that. I think it's expansive. I think that people are going to do it until they're bored of doing it, and people are just kind of sick of seeing the same things. And the better ones rise to the top. They get the fans, and like to Frank's point, some fall off. You know, so right. It's an easy ride to jump on, I think, and it's kind of up to the person, the skill that they use, the level they execute, you know, the way they market themselves and their product. That's what speaks to everybody, and that's what gets on the shelves. So, does that answer it? I don't know if I'm like going like sideways at this point.
Well, let me come over to Nick because we talk about this all the time.
Oh Lord.
Come to you. Do you think that the churn is a good thing? Like, because Galen's saying that it's a good thing that anybody can come in and make a toy.
It is,
and then it'll fall out on its own.
Well,
is that a good thing for the industry?
No, it's absolutely a good thing that it is available to everybody. The negative side to it obviously is that people come into this industry as fans, they turn into artists, and instead of helping support the industry by buying things, they're putting that money into creating their own art. But they're not replenishing the fan base. So we do have that slight shrinking fan base, but to Frank's original point, you know, the cream will rise and everything else will fall apart. There's a chance that at a certain point when an artist is tired of doing something and it doesn't work out, they might just return to being a fan again. So things could come down full circle.
Right.
Thus, it does even out. I think it's great that this is an industry where people can easily and accessibly make their own toys at home if they want to out of resin. It's fantastic because it's the core of any art. You can buy a canvas, you can paint it. Anybody can do that. That's what art is, and designer toys are absolutely art.
Thank you. I agree with that. I agree with what you're saying. Ricky, do you think that, do you agree with the churn, and do you also think that there's a different perspective coming from, I don't know if you all know who Ricky is, but he's a producer of Sofubi from Japan, and I think you have a unique perspective to bring to the market because you kind of experience it as an insider and an outsider.
In terms of that last question there about like shrinking fan bases
Yes.
and fans moving on to
And then-
becoming creators.
And if I'm not phrasing it well, I apologize, but like, you do have a unique perspective, so how do you see it?
I mean, pretty much we're the vanity press of the figure industry right now. So it's like, if you come to us and you say, hey, I want to make a figure in vinyl, I say, it's going to be about this much money, is that okay? All right, and then we make it for you, right?
Right.
Which I think is great. And you know, I really appreciate that there's guys, like Kid Robot is out there and they're reaching out to different, you know, groups of customers and groups of fans. So there's guys who are into Marvel, there's guys who are into Street Fighter, there's guys who are into The Simpsons. And they pick up a Simpsons figure from Kid Robot and they think, oh wow, this is cool. They get into it, they get into the industry or into the overall scene, and then, you know, maybe in a couple of months they say, oh yeah, you know, that's good. Hey, this other stuff's really cool too. Let's start digging a little bit deeper, getting into these other areas. So I think the big enemy is insularity. You know, it's like when it becomes that really insular culture where it's this contained group of fans that are just kind of cannibalizing each other and going in this Ouroboros circle, that's when you run into problems. But when you're reaching out to new groups, you're reaching out to new demographics of people and, you know, saying, hey, come on in, this is interesting, this is fun, this is dynamic, and bringing people in, then you're always going to have fresh blood flowing into the scene, and if some of those guys go on to make things, great. Hopefully they're successful, maybe they're not, that's okay, you know. It's just awesome that there's all these options out there now, whereas 10 years ago, I mean, your options were very, very limited, I think. There weren't so many options to actually come in. So I think it's healthy, overall.
When you started talking about Kid Robot, though, it's an interesting point because Kid Robot is kind of the crack that you all know that Kid Robot is crack, right? It's the crack. It's like it's almost the free crack because you can buy buy stuff for $10 or $15, and you start buying. It's like, oh, I love The Simpsons, so I love these things, and it's like, oh, look at all, and then make dummies and like look at all this cool stuff that you can buy, and then next thing you know, you're dropping $200-300 on Kaiju. And you're going, you know, you're filling up your house with this stuff. And it was just started with The Simpsons. So I mean, Kid Robot fulfills that in the marketplace, but I think, you know, we try and look at the whole industry, and is Kid Robot the only place for people to find out about it? I mean, I really believe that designer toys are amazing and they're a valid art form and they should grow, and they really do have their own ecosystem that's in between a toy and a bronze, and they're an important way for artists to express themselves. But how do they become something that can be economically viable for an artist to live and grow? Is Kid Robot the only outlet for someone? Like, you know, Frank's there. We've got the, like, you're on your 500th release, and you're doing it. And a lot of what you do is with Kid Robot, and that's fantastic. How are there other outlets, and should there be other outlets, or is it just a gallery scene? And do we need more galleries that are
No, I mean, okay. So I'll try to answer your question. So this is for anybody out there.
If there was a question, what was that? No, thank you, please. No, I said, I wasn't even sure if there really was a question there, but.
So here's the thing, like, okay, how do I do it? So the thing is that, like, if you want to make a full-time living at it, you have to do a lot of it. And so the reason I succeeded is because everyone was like, when it first started, everyone was like, no, it should be all precious, and you should do like one character once in a while, and it should be all a secret, and you should make 4 of them, and all this baloney. Okay, that's awesome if it's a hobby, okay, but I'm in a position where I do creative work for a living. Been doing it for 30 years in many different fields. So my approach was the opposite. My approach was like, I developed my own character line that was meant to be a more mainstream toy, really accessible, and that is the stuff I did with Kid Robot. And then I put wraps on everybody's toy that I could get my hands on. I did 1 million keys, I did 1 million toys, and that's awesome because it gave me filler product, and it expanded my name. And then, once I started making more money, I started producing my own lines of toys. And that's what I do these days. Like, you have to understand, like, I don't want to hire 50 people. I did it before when I had a record label. Like, I don't want to have employees. So, the stuff where they're the little $5 toys that we have to sell 1 million units a year for it to make money, yes, I license that off to somebody like Kid Robot because they have 50 people. They take care of all of that stuff. I just do the designs. I want to do crazy art bus toys. I self-produce those because I only have to sell 400 to make money on those. And so I'm willing to invest. And now what I do with the resins is not only am I suddenly selling all these resins, but the resin deal is awesome because I can make my own mold, and for like under $1,000, I can test market a new character in 3 dimensions to the customer base. And so for $1,000, I make a little hedgehog resin, people love it, then I know, oh, I should make this in vinyl because it's willing to take the risk because people like the character. So I'm willing to invest the $12,000 it'll take to make it in vinyl overseas, in colors and in a box and all that stuff. So what I do is I do everything all at once, okay? Like, I design the mainstream stuff that I do a license with, right? I produce my own high-end toys, either by myself or through partnerships with other people. I do my own in-house research by doing the resin figures and selling them direct retail. Also, having your own direct retail site. I mean, there's a big romance to having a store on the street, but it's a loser unless you're selling a wide range of products. If you're just only selling toys, you're going to fail. I really think. Unless, like, you have a huge name like Toy Tokyo or something. So I do a direct online in sales, and that's huge because if I make a toy and I retail it myself, I'm making 800% profit on that toy. So it's worth doing it. So, like I said before, what's really important is first and foremost, if you're just starting out from the very beginning, dude, do the numbers first. And if you're just breaking even or you're losing money, don't make the toy because what's the point, right? So you have to think about it like that. So. And I agree with what Ricky said about it being like getting inbred, because all that does is basically everyone gets soured on everything, and like you sell 0 toys. So if you're going to listen to like the same 6 fuckheads on a toy forum for what is cool to buy, you're an idiot. Like, I'm opposed to it. I think that everybody should just make all this insane random stuff, and you know what? Most of it's going to be shitty, and no one's going to care. But like a lot of lines, like Clay Ferguson with the squats, he's an old friend of mine. He was a fan. He's like, oh, I kind of want to make toys. How do I do it? And then he ended up doing this rad line of toys that has a huge following. And also, you got to remember, no one in this business is a professional. We're all amateurs and fans. Like, none of us went to like design school for toy making, Sofubi style, back in 1990. Like, we all just saw something one day and was, what the fuck? I want to figure out how to make something like that. And we all sort of like figured out how to do it. So I'm not opposed to fans making toys because we're all fans. There is no professional, cadre of people that, well, they're accredited toy designers, so they should make the toys only. Does that answer the question?
That's good. It takes me kind of to where I wanted to go. Is where is it going? Is it art, or should it become mainstream? Like,
it's product. It's commercial product.
You see, it's purely commercial product.
Well, yeah, because like if it doesn't make any money, unless you're like the rich guy or something, like you gotta make, if you're gonna, you gotta make money. I guess you could do it once and lose all your money and then miss art, but But also you got to think the market is really fickle, it's ever changing. Okay, the fan base turns over 20% a year in, year out. So that means in the last 10 years it's basically like 2% of the people were fans 12 years ago.
But don't you think it's a balance? Don't you think the industry needs people who are making smaller runs, more art toys, and then to have people who are churning out, well, here's a million.
You have that in spades. You have 1 million people making small, rad, weird runs of toys, and you have like a few people doing sort of like mass-produced blind box stuff. You have that in the market already.
So,
the problem is that like it's sales. You got to understand like the market is going to get sweet for us now because Cause stopped selling toys. So no, you laugh, but it's true. Okay, so. You know, I keep track of things. Cause was doing about $2 million a year in retail action on his toy lines. Well, that's $2 million out there in consumer pockets, and those people still want to buy weird toy shit.
right.
So they're looking around, okay, like I can't get Cause anymore. What's going to be the other?
You're like day trading. You're sitting and you're really watching the market and going like, well,
Well, dude, this is how I make my living.
I think we all need to figure out how to do what you do.
And the internet's, you know, it's basically free, so you just got to look at it. So between, you know, between Medicom no longer making the Cause toys, and a couple of other like smaller companies that have like sort of disappeared in the last couple of years, I figure there's about a $4 million retail chunk of collector money sitting out there. Because sales are always about the same year in, year out. It's just you're changing the people. You know, I've been tracking the sales for a long time. And so the thing is, there's room to grow for someone that has a cool design, a cool character, and knows how to present it to that sort of hype beast Cause crowd. There's a big juicy plum waiting out there for somebody.
You haven't weighed in yet, Carlos. Let's give you some airtime.
I agree with him. I'm always like checking what other people are doing, because that kind of forecasts like what people are buying. Like what Kosick says is true. Like the market is always changing. Like one thing that worked for me 3 months ago didn't work for me last month. So you have to fucking change it. You have to be on your toes. You have to be investigating who's doing what, how much are they selling it for, how much they sell. Because that's gonna kind of give you a hint of what you should be doing. I mean, it's true that you have to do whatever you want to do. If you don't want to follow the crowd and the trends and all that stuff, it's fine. But what you have to be is intelligent with the numbers, like Kosick says. You have to know the numbers, and if you're gonna do it, you have to do it like with a educated, how do you say it?
Perspective.
Yeah, with an educated perspective.
Do you also agree that it's a product? And it should be viewed as a product and not necessarily as an art object?
Art objects are products too, dude.
Yeah, it's true.
Fine artists don't give it away, dude. You know, Richter's getting 40 million euros of painting.
Don't ruin it for people.
You know,
No, it's true.
No, of course it's true. And
It is a product.
Warhol took us all to school. That was the point.
Yeah,
the business of art is business, and
yeah, I agree.
And it's commodified, but at the same time, there's magic to seeing something like, 2006, 2007, or even earlier, going into a gallery and seeing a crystal dunny was magical, and like you couldn't afford it, and you're like, oh my god! Like I remember seeing my first few Cause pieces, early 2000s, going to somebody's house and he had like 5 of these companions, and I didn't know what they were, and I was like, oh my god, I have to have them, and it was like magical, and it wasn't like that's a toy. So I understand that at the end of the day, the best advice that you can give to somebody who's starting about where this is going is, do your numbers and do the math and figure out how it's going to work. And I completely agree, because that's kind of where we come from too. But at the same time, to expand the market, there has to be kind of a consensus of like, we're going to always make sure that there's enough of a mystery of this is amazing to lure people in, along with the $10 crack, to grow it. And then I guess the question is like, should it be in malls or should it be in galleries? And the answer is probably, you're going to tell me both, but I don't know, I'm just guessing. But, how do we balance that? And we were just talking about that the other day, like, Kid Robot Black versus, the licensed products. It's so important. Without Kid Robot Black, the fans may peel away. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think I love Kid Black. Huh?
Just throwing it to you.
No, I personally love Kid Black. Like I like darker shit. But to your point, and Carlos's point, I think that there's.
But can I just make a point?
Yeah,
that
yeah.
It's not just about the dark. From
Yeah,
at
yeah.
least from my perspective as an outsider,
Yeah.
I think I perceive Kid Robot Black as Kid Robot saying there is art, and we're going to make
Absolutely.
an artistic product.
Yeah.
It's not just dark. And then there's
Yeah.
okay.
And that I
I
mean.
call it high end as opposed to artistic. You can't tell
Oh.
like the cheap stuff's not artistic.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I'm not feeling that.
No, I mean, KR Black for us, it's like, it's break even. You know, we don't profit off of KR Black at all, but it's our attempt at pushing the limits of molding,
I think it's
limited production.
Can you come closer?
Oh, sorry. Super limited production, you know, extravagant box, and, you know, the toy itself is really expensive to make, and that's just the way it is, and that to me is an art object, for sure. You know, you put that up in a gallery, fine. You put it at home and front and center on your shelf. But
Internally,
Oh,
do you
sorry.
guys? Well, I just want to know how you really think about it. Like internally, do you all discuss nurturing the art?
yeah,
What was the word I was supposed to use? The higher,
Higher
end.
end.
Sorry, the higher end art side versus licensing. Is that an active conversation? And it's kind of goes back to what Kozik was saying. Like he goes from resin to watch the trend as a prototype to production piece, and then he can do his own stuff where he has to only sell this many to make money on it. It's like, well, I'm going to go do this other thing, and there's a balance. Do you actively just negotiate that?
Oh, 100%. I mean, we're doing the exact same thing, just on a different level, because we have to look at everyone and everything that's going on in the scene, and then the artists, and then who's doing what, who works with who, you know, what kind of matchups make sense. The artist series and the core product that we do, I view as art. You know, I do. Donnie, it's art. I think, you know, it's obviously product. You sell it, you buy it. Yeah, so what we're doing in the future, you know, I think in the past, we've gotten ahead of ourselves with the core product, so we're going to be really pulling back on quantity amounts. My goal is to release a Donnie series and then, you know, go on in a day, and
Right.
then you can't get it anymore, get back to that. Kind of limiting the core product that we come out with to make it more exclusive, and then our licensed products are, you know, we're picking up new licenses that kind of, I think, will fulfill the back end of that. So, you know, hopefully it all catches up. Did that answer anything? I'm sorry.
No, I think it's important what you're saying, because it sounds like you do all actively want to nurture the art side of it.
But here's my question though,
Yeah.
why do you want it so badly to be art with a capital A? Why can't it just
Me
be
personally?
weird, cool shit? Because, you know, to me, art with a capital A is like a unique handmade piece. It's a painting. It's a real sculpture.
But I think we're
It's
more
like a
about-
live performance that's an ephemeral thing. Like anything, the minute you make a mold, and I do bronzes, okay, which everyone's like, oh, they're art, they're really expensive. But they're still multiples, they're not art. It's a manufactured item. So I've always been curious, people are so obsessed with making whatever we call these things, urban vinyl, whatever you want to call it, somehow always like it has to be art with a big A. Why can't it just be what it is?
Was the Campbell soup can art with a capital A, or was it just
The ones he painted there, the 40 of them or whatever he hand painted little canvases, yes, that was art. But like really nice Gaclay reproductions of them are not, in my definition of art.
Okay.
But my main question for you is why do these weird, freaky things that we all make have to be art? Why can't they just be what they are? Why can't it just be a Dunny or a Sofubi monster or whatever? Why do they have to have a label to make them more acceptable to a certain social order? I don't understand why people are, it's gonna be art. Why can't it just be what the fuck it is?
Nick, do you agree that they don't need labels?
Do they need labels? No, it just it makes it easier. As a blogger, I've got to explain stuff to people. So for me, it's easier if you can put it into terms that the average person that stumbles across a post is going to be able to understand. And art is definitely one of those terms. I don't necessarily use a capital A though. I just use the word art. I think everybody understands what art is, and I fully do think that our industry, as weird and cool as everything is in it, it's art. You got an artist, they're making something. It's art in the same way that like a limited edition print or a lithograph is art.
But that's so commercial.
But then you're going to get into this weird thing where it's like, okay, so like you go to, so there's like a, whatever, there's like a dunny, and there's some like insane resin thing, and they're both being sold in the same store. And then someone's got to come in and like be the Nazi that goes, okay, this is art, it survives. This is obviously not art to the gas chamber.
Well,
at some point.
10 years ago.
So, you know what I'm saying? So I think a lot of people get, I've actually seen people in the industry like be driven away and like sort of crushed because like people are like, oh, you're not making art anymore, dude. You're just selling out because you made like a blind box set or something. And I think that's super fucked.
I would agree with you.
I totally agree. I don't think that the label, me personally, I don't think that the label is important in the sense that it defines some permanent concept about the object, but I think it means something to people to perceive art. I think that people find it beautiful and they want it, and they want to understand what they're seeing or buying or perceiving, and then to find that in themselves as well. And again, you know, to go back to like those first times that you found some really cool toy and you're like, this blows my mind, that's an artistic experience, and it's important for people. So let me turn it around because I'm interested. Do you want to say something? And we have this conversation all the time where we're like, well, screw you, it's art, or like, it's not supposed to be art, so shut the fuck up. Like, and we have both sides. Do people have this argument in Japan? Do they care, or is it just goddamn toys and shut the hell up?
I would say art in and unto itself, as we understand art in the West, is not so much enjoyed or understood in Japan. And one of the reasons there is because like people in Japan don't usually buy art. They buy stuff they like. They go to a museum to see art. They go to a performance to see art. They don't buy art so much. Like, I mean, you might see it in a corporate office, but you're not going to go into somebody's house. Whereas, like, if you go to an upper middle class person's house in America, they might have some art pieces, or an upper class person's house in America, they might have like art on their wall.
Little A or big A, or depending on the size of their wallet.
You know, it could
whether
be like
they
whatever, you know, like who's the lighthouse guy? Thomas Kincaid. It could be like Thomas Kincaid, or it could be like, you know, something out of Juxtapose. It could be like an original Pusshead. You know, it doesn't matter, but it's like you don't normally see that in Japan. You see like guys buy shit they like. They buy things because they enjoy it. They think it's interesting. And so in Japan, it's like toys are toys. It's a geek thing. It's a nerd thing. You know, so it's like if you're a toy nerd, you buy toys.
There's no pretension to this gallery concept.
I mean, it would be weird to see toys in a gallery in Japan, I think. Even to see like comic art, like manga art in galleries in Japan is a relatively recent phenomenon.
Is that where we have to go to start blowing minds again?
But I mean, what I'm gonna, I would say like the whole designer toy thing, art toy thing in general, we're talking about like high culture versus low culture, like capital A art versus product, right? And to me, it's like the material we're using and the methods we're using to produce, and I'm a production guy, like I produce things all the time. I'm always making stuff. And it's like, I see where it comes from, you know? And it comes from, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but it comes from a low place. And I'm not looking down on it, that's what I do. That's
You
what
mean
I'm
that
in.
the average person coming to you to get something produced is coming to you for a capitalist reason?
No, sorry, that's not what I mean.
No, he's saying they're not blind by like albino monks on top of a mountain somewhere.
Yeah, it's just like this stuff is made in a little factory by guys, you know? We're just
Using a mold.
We're using a mold, we're making a product, we're cranking it out, you know? And I realize that there's a lot of heart and a lot of thought that goes into it. But I mean, the materials we're using were originally made for like Barbie dolls, dude. They were originally used to make like little toys for kids to like mess around with and play around with. And like that's what made it cool, because it went from this low culture, it rose to high culture, you know? Whereas you look at these like kaiju figures from the 60s and 70s now, those were originally made as like this $5 throwaway thing, and now it's this rare prized object and it's thousands of dollars, and the artisanship and like the craftsmanship is appreciated. But it rose, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, how much does it suck if something is created as this like big, artistic, amazing statement, and then it's like marked down for clearance 6 months down the line because it didn't take off? That's not awesome, you know? And I'm not saying that in reference to any particular product or any particular line. I just mean as a concept, for something to start out intentionally as this high culture, high-end product and then go down sucks. But for something to start out as this low, basic thing that's made just to be enjoyed or to be used or to be just, fulfill this function in day-to-day life, and then to rise up to the level of like high culture and appreciation, that's awesome.
Right.
And so for me, it's like I look at it, and when I'm making stuff, when I do my own personal line, I make my living, I eat. My daily bread is from like making stuff for other guys. It's for production. So when I make my own stuff, I make stuff I like. I don't care if it sells. If I sell 5, if I sell 50, whatever, that's cool. If I make a profit, awesome. If I go in the red, whatever. It's a calculated loss. I'm making it because I like making it. And maybe people appreciate it, maybe they don't. That's cool. So like, I really appreciate Frank's perspective on it because I think that's a really strong, it's a logical, awesome perspective to have to really grow. And I want to get more of that myself. But right now it's like, man, I just want to make stuff I like, I just want to make cool stuff. And then if people appreciate that later on, come on, that's awesome.
You happen to be in a very unique position where you're getting to make toys professionally and whatever you want to call the other side of it. For your own art.
Very unprofessionally.
Well,
terribly unprofessional.
I don't think anybody here is pretending to be a professional. Should we do questions? We've got 15 minutes left. Does anybody? We can continue the conversation, but you in the back. You raised your hand first.